Hello everyone, today me and our group have put together this video presentation for you about the Battle of Stalingrad. Specifically, I will begin by introducing you to the broader tactical situations both sides faced before the battle. Alright, the Battle of Stalingrad would be the climactic end to the German summer offensive of 1942. At this time, the Germans called this Operation Fallblau. This campaign took place after the success of the initial invasion of the Soviet Union called Operation Barbarossa. This Operation Barbarossa was initially met with success, however it failed in the strategic objective of capturing the Soviet capital of Moscow and the industrial city of Leningrad. The main objective of this new campaign was the Caucasus region in the south of the Soviet Union. More specifically, it was the large oil deposits near the city of Baku in what would modern day be Azerbaijan. The city of Stalingrad would sit on the Volga River, which would have created a great defensive line after the Germans had captured the Caucasus. The city was also a major industrial center for the Soviet Union, with the tractor factories of the city being converted into tank factories at the beginning of the war. Of course, this would have been an important strategic objective and railway hub as well. After the initiation of the German operation, it was initially met with success and breakthroughs. However, the city of Stalingrad held firm, and the German military was faced with two options. One, bypass the city entirely and move to capture the vital oil fields, or two, invest as much as possible into taking the city. The German High Command was in favor of taking the strategic resources necessary to continue the campaign. However, Hitler, in his ultimate wisdom, believed that taking the city that held the name of the leader of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, was more important than any strategic objective. Therefore, he moved all of his military forces to have his climactic battle on the Volga River.
Before the initiation of Operation Fallblau, the German Eastern Front line was extensive, reaching from the Black Sea to the Baltic Sea. This extensive front line left the German Wehrmacht spread thin and undermanned. This left the German Wehrmacht in a poor position after the failure of Operation Barbarossa. With a significant amount of fighting the previous year, the German army on the Eastern Front were veteran units with substantial fighting experience. This, in combination with the still poor condition of the Soviet officer corps, left the Wehrmacht in a position to launch an offense. However, no amount of good tactics would fit its overextension, and Germany was forced to rely on their allies in the Balkans and Central Europe, such as Romania and Hungary, to plug any gaps in the front line. Unfortunately for the Wehrmacht, the condition of these allied militaries much be desired. The Hungarian and Romanian forces that were sent to hold the line on the Eastern Front had no anti-tank weapons or training, nor were they offered any armored support. This was in stark contrast to the Wehrmacht, who supplied the troops with anti-tank guns, notably the 5cm Panzerwagen 38 L60 gun, which equipped most German anti-tank units. The German army taking part in the Fallblau campaign was also equipped with 6 tank divisions totaling 1,934 tanks and armored assault guns. The main tanks that equipped these German panzer units would have been the various incarnations of the Panzerwagen. For facing these German forces was the Soviet Red Army, who equipped a small number of their anti-tank units with a 45mm anti-tank gun. However, the Red Army preferred the use of an ineffective anti-tank rifle that were cheaper to make and simple to use. The philosophy of cheap and simple was not only pervasive in an anti-tank unit, but can also be clearly seen in the Soviet tank forces. The Red Army main battle tank of this time was the T-34-76, which on paper was equivalent to German tanks, but in reality suffered from poor manufacturing quality that resulted in significant combat losses.
The German army began its advance on Stalingrad with 270,000 military personnel who were commanded by Friedrich Wilhelm Ernst Paulus. The attacking German force outnumbered the Soviet defenders, who only had 187,000 men and were led by Andrei Yeryomenko, who would later be replaced by Georgy Zhukov. The city's defense was bolstered with older women and children digging trenches, while any man was put to work in the Red Army with very little training. This battle would also see some of the few cases where women were employed in frontline combat as snipers and machine gunners. This desperate defense by the Soviets would give both the Germans and Soviets time to pour more resources and manpower into the city. At its peak, the German and Soviet armies both deployed over 1 million men in the city. While the Soviets' desperate defense slowed down the German Wehrmacht, the Soviets were pushed back through the city with bloody house-to-house fighting. At its peak, the German army controlled over 90% of the city. This was until the Soviets launched Operation Uranus. Unlike one would expect, the Soviet offensive operation was not targeted at the city of Stalingrad itself, but instead targeted at the flanks outside the city. This operation was led by one of the greatest military commanders in the Soviet Union, Georgy Zhukov. Zhukov realized that the Germans had focused all of their military strength into directly capturing the city and had left the area around the city to be guarded by their weaker allied armies. Zhukov used his strong tank corps to break the Hungarian and Romanian lines and then completely encircled the entire 6th German army. The German commander, Friedrich Wilhelm, knew that the only chance his army had was to abandon the city and attempt to break out of the pocket. However, Hitler ordered that Wilhelm must hold the city to the last man. Hitler was under the false hope that the German Luftwaffe would be able to supply the encircled army by air. A combination of bad weather and lack of transport planes led to the slow starvation and eventual surrender of the entire German 6th Army. It is debated by historians whether Wilhelm's proposed breakout would have been successful or not, but if it had been successful, it would have saved the lives of over 400,000 German men and would have no doubt prolonged the war.